Board of Education meeting for September 28, 2022. Roll call.
Bab.
Here.
Stuckey.
Here.
Palage.
Here.
Goods.
Here.
Schleifer.
Here.
Stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, do I have a motion to adopt tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Got a couple seconds.
Rudy.
Roll call.
Bab.
Yes.
Stuckey.
Yes.
Palage.
Yes.
Goods.
Yes.
Schleifer.
Yes.
Do I have a motion to adopt the meeting or minutes of August 24, 2022?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call. Yeah, good.
Bab.
Yes.
Stuckey.
Yes.
Palage.
Yes.
Goods.
Yes.
Schleifer.
Yes.
Do I have a motion to adopt the September 14th meeting minutes?
So moved. Second.
Roll call. Okay.
Bab.
Yes.
Stuckey.
Yes.
Palage.
Yes.
Goods.
Yes.
Schleifer.
Yes.
Moving on to public participation and introduction of guests, 2.1.
Yes, tonight we are excited to welcome Mr. Yost from the junior high to present to us the Doxa Wells fundraiser project that happened late May of last year.
Correct, yes.
Okay, all yours.
Thank you for letting me come in, and I'm going to kind of, if you can hear me good enough, I'm just going to stand up there so I can keep on hitting my buttons. How about that? So when Scott asked me to come in to kind of go over what we did this summer for the well project, I kind of just put together maybe 10 or 12 slides here to kind of run you through real quick what the summer entailed. This first picture is, as soon as we had boots hit the ground in July, we took off July the 8th, about 5 o'clock in the morning, and this is July the 9th, about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. As soon as we got off the plane, we went straight to the well site. And that's actually in the Longway, Malawi, is part of Malawi, Africa. And the drill rig already started drilling. And so they are showing me the different layers of soil that they had to go through. Our particular well at this primary school had to go down about 150 feet to hit water. And so they started off just the red clay dirt, and as we worked our way across the sand, some limestone and the shale rock, and then all the way down here is kind of the harder rock, which they had to hit to actually get that vein of water. And the cool thing about it is, as soon as they got done showing me that, they started yelling. We were on the other side of this wall that they were showing me that rock. They started yelling here where the rig was because they hit the vein. And so we all ran around the wall with the kids, and we got to actually see them hit the vein in the water and the water coming out of the ground, which is really cool and exciting. And then they started explaining to me how many dry wells that they hit, because when they start to drill the well, the head of the drill bit is about the size of a softball. And once they get about 150 feet down, they have to hit that vein of water that's going through that shale rock. And if they miss it just by about 6 inches, they come up with a dry well, and the whole day wasted because they didn't hit that little area of water. So it's pretty amazing that they got it on the first try on this one. And so the kids were excited. We were watching the water come out. They wanted to go splash in it, which is pretty cool. So over the next week or two, we left that sort of area of Malawi, and we started to hit through the Dedza area, the Tinja area, a lot of different areas, a little bit more south and north of Malawi area, and we did a well repair. This was actually through the funds also from our fundraisers that we did at school. We had left over, so we were able to repair some wells. And I just brought this one to show you, this well was already existed, but it was clogged up for, usually the wells in Africa will work for about 3 months. And then this little $2 rubber piece shuts the whole thing down because it gets jammed up inside these PVC pipes for about 3 inches round. And this thing goes up and down inside them, and it just kind of gets heat built up in it so much that they start breaking down, and all it is rubber. And all it takes is a little rubber flap to get caught in here, shuts the whole well down. So we were able to go in and repair this with another piece that Doxa Wells came up out of. And we had to take all the PVC pipes out of it, replace all the innards of it, and get it replaced again, and it was up and running within probably 6-7 hours. And now these lasts have been on average for 2 years. So it's a great thing that another well that the school was able to help provide working water for, which is, I think, really cool. During the time we were going around, our pastor that was walking around with us, his name was Abusa, and he told us about this village that was way back in the bush. And I wanted to get a good feel of what it was like to actually go back in the bush and actually make this trip to the Dova, which is like a water hole area where the people got their water. And what we don't realize, and what I was trying to explain to the kids, I'm gonna have Maggie come up here in a second, that sometimes the ladies have to walk 3 to 5 miles to get this water. So I wanted to take that track, that journey, to go down to the Dova, to see where they get the water, to see what it looked like, and how they brought it back. So we all kind of lined up, and we just took a walk with the villagers. As soon as we got there, first lady we encountered was washing her clothes in it. So she had all these clothes laying on the ground, just scrubbing them out on a rock. We went just a little bit further upstream. We had to chase all these goats out. And they were just in there pooping and peeing and just doing their goat thing in the water. And then right next to them were some of the villagers that went ahead of us getting their water out. And it all kind of clicked. You know, this is why they got the trouble with the diarrhea, the dysteria, and everything else that are killing so many people there, because they're drinking the water that all that's going on. And they try to go back and boil it, but it's still, they're not boiling it completely, and they're ingesting all the other bacteria that's going on in there. Well, I offered to take the bucket of water back to the village for them. And this burned me up as far as muscle-wise. I don't know if anybody has any grandkids, nieces and nephews, kids themselves that are about 3 years old. That's about typical average weight for a 3-year-old is about 30 pounds. And that's what this 4 gallon of water is, about 30 pounds. And can you imagine taking your grandkid or whoever it was, holding them above your head, and walking up to here to Dorothy Lane Market? That's a trek. And they have to do that 2 or 3 times a day just to get the water. It kind of came home for me, because I had put that thing down several times because my arms and shoulders were burning. It was crazy. Maggie here, we did actually a walk for water of the high school, and I kind of wanted the kids to symbolize during some of our fundraisers what that track was like. So what we did is, the starting line on the track, I had a bunch of buckets. Some of the buckets were empty, some of them were full. And so like Maggie, she would pick up an empty bucket, walk around the track, and come back to the finish line, which symbolizes going to the water hole with an empty bucket. She'd drop her empty bucket, pick up a full bucket, and go back the other way, symbolizing coming back to her village. And so I wanted Maggie to be here just kind of so she could share with you for a second, if you don't mind, Mag, just kind of what that experience was and kind of why you got involved with it, if you wouldn't mind. Step on up. And do you want her at the microphone, or
How's
you want
her
her to use her
voice?
junior high voice just to... We'll go microphone. Cool.
Is it on? Hello? Oh, okay. Okay.
Might have to just get close to it.
I'm not very loud, so we'll see how this goes. So we had to walk around the lap, like, was it 10 times?
Yes.
5 times full, 5 times empty. And I was with another person, so I only had to do halfway. But I started with carrying the bucket just by my side. Most of the water fell out. So then I put it on top of my head like they do in the villages. And only doing half of it full and then the half of that, I was so sore. It was so painful. And yeah, so even just walking there and like having to worry about how much water, because I spilled a lot of water, that seems so crazy that they have to do that like every single day just to get a glass of water that isn't even clean or healthy or anything. And I could barely do it even with the bucket half full and only doing it halfway. But it's really cool. We've been able to help that.
Appreciate it. Thanks. So once we got back at the end of towards the end of July, when we went back to Chatipi Village, these are the kids at the school, the primary school that we put the well in. We had a celebration pumping ceremony, we called for them. So they all kind of hunkered down on the ground, and we were asking them who wants to be around when we start pumping the water out. Of course, they all start raising up their hands. So we went across around the other side, and this is Joe in the blue hat. That's the president and CEO of Doxa Wells, and he lives right here in Springboro. And that one behind him is the headmaster, the principal of GTV School, and all the kids around him. They were there when we first started pumping water out. And of course, we all know it. It's really cool watching that come out. That's I put this picture in every time I go over. That is a selfie that I take of the kids, and then I turn around and show them, and they freak out because they don't know how they got in that little box that I hold in my hand. And they always want me to take another selfie of them. So I just did that in. So I'm done with this. I'd rather answer your questions if anybody's got any questions.
So is it by luck of the draw where they drill?
As far as what area they go?
How do they determine?
They have a couple of machines, Coach, that they actually can, they're expensive. They're like $30,000 that kind of go down and find, it's almost like the sticks that you used to see that kind of geared towards water. They do that primitive stuff still too, and they are very accurate on where they go. They have this machine that can really pinpoint it, but they can't afford it through Doxa just because their company isn't that big. So it is a very guesstimation, I guess you could say, but they are very, they've been very reliable on their hits. They hardly ever come up with very dry wells. It all depends how big the vein is. A lot of the veins there, like I said, you can only miss them 6 to 8 inches, but some of the veins are really wide to nail. So they've been very fortunate to hit a bunch of them, like ours hit on the first try, which is great.
Does it have to be boiled when it's brought up from the drill, not from the pond, but the water? Does it?
Oh, no, it's fresh.
It's fresh.
It's fresh, yep. Yeah, soon we started cranking down when we pumped on it for about maybe 2 or 3 minutes, just get all the sediment and everything that was out of that vein, and yeah, then we started drinking it right away. Yeah, and it's great water, it tastes good. Yeah.
Can you share the other things that you did? Because you did multiple things as fundraisers, and then how much you raised through, like, at the junior high?
Oh, well, we did candy sales. It's amazing, kids that'll buy candy, just buy candy to go towards something like this. We did dances, and that was a big project that Stacy Cavanaugh helped us do through the student council. That raised close to $3,200, I want to say, just the dance. We charged the kids $5, and that's the first dance. We didn't realize this until we got started. That's the first dance that the kids had ever in their lives in school, because they were never 7th and 8th graders before because of COVID, so we never had the dances before. And they were just, out of the 1,000 kids we had in the building, I think we had 512 kids show up to the dance. And we had a dodgeball tournament where they got on teams of 10, and they did a $5 entry for their dodgeball teams, and it's mostly guys because they just love throwing balls and trying to knock their buddy's head off. So that always works out great. So yeah, just simple stuff like that try to make it fun and still go towards a good cause.
I think you did a great job engaging the student body for something that you really showed them the impact of getting outside of Springboro and really impacting a true need in another country. So,
and that surprised me too, Lisa. It was, I mean, you know, when you start talking about doing something like this, and these kids will never have any association to do with any of these kids that they ever see, and the impact that they had. It was amazing. Just even at the dance, what really caught me at the dance, we had kids at the end of the dance where we were selling pizza and water at the dance too. And kids were just coming up saying, I got $10 extra. So we'll go ahead and grab it. What do you want, pizza, water? No, I just want to give it towards the wells. You don't have junior high kids doing that, you know? It's gimme, gimme, gimme. It's not, here, do something with it. And that's what broke my heart a lot.
that's awesome.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Now, if you all want to stay for the rest of the excitement, you're
Uh-oh.
welcome to, or you can leave.
Okay.
It's really boring.
If they would be.
All right. Springboro Education, I already asked her if she had anything. She said no, so we'll move on.
Well, I'm just the vice president.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We also don't have, I
You
don't.
don't have any either? Okay. All All right. Classified, I don't believe there's anybody here for that. Okay. Public participation prearranged, I believe we have one for tonight. Yep.
Respected members of the board, Superintendent Hester, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. My name is Lena Reiki Salmon. I would first like to express my gratitude to Springboro Schools for the excellent education my daughters have received. Both are at Ohio State University doing very well, and that is all attributed to the academic preparation they received here at Springboro. I'm also here to talk a little bit more about the Diversity and Inclusion Committee that was formed last year under Larry Hook. Our last meeting, I believe in person, was in February, and then it just kind of, in my opinion, fizzled out. And I just am requesting that we, if we could get back together as that committee, just to kind of formalize put our loose ideas and everything together. We had divided into two groups, and we had the Borough Ambassador team that was going to cast the vision for Borough Ambassadors, and I think that job was done. From what I understand, Borough Ambassadors is underway, and that's wonderful. But that's only part of what we wanted to do. The other half of the group was supposed to come up with like community and school engagement. And a big part, I think, of that is surveys, and that's where we have at the last meeting that we were at. That's where what we had discussed, surveys. If we could get back together to talk more about that, or if there could be some sort of surveys that are created and distributed, I think that will be able to give us proof in the pudding as far as what Springboro is able to do. We're an excellent school district, and there's just a few things that bug me about our school district, and just, that is definitely one of them. I feel that there is some families who are unaware, I don't want to say ignorant, but just simply unaware, they don't understand, or perhaps they just have mean tones in their families or in their bodies, and they just allow and accept the use of slurs and hateful terms and overall mean behavior. And that's not something that I think Springboro wants to be known for, but unfortunately that is where we are headed. So that is my main purpose of speaking tonight. Again, I have come before you guys and I've hooted or hollered, but I do want to say that Springboro does a good job. I think we have to move and get the emotional side as high as we have the academic side, so we can create a well-rounded student, a well-rounded community member, leader of our society a few years down the road. Thank you.
Next one is 2.5, public participation on any agenda item. Okay. Convene for the work session. With the work session, after each item, there'll be, if anybody wants a question, there'll be time for that. First one up is the enrollment class size.
Have a document for you, so I'm not just spewing a bunch of numbers without something to look at.
You know it's true now?
It's true because it's on paper. Okay. What I've done is I have taken our class sizes and put them in by grade level for grades 1 through 8. And for high school, I have separated those out by subject matter. As you can see, the number of students in the first column per grade level, and then the number of staff within the grade level. And then what I've done is I've divided that, and any number that is below a 0.5, I rounded down. Any number above 0.5 and above, I rounded up. So you can see at the very top of the document, we have our contract language. We try when we create schedules to follow our contract language, so I have included that there. Our contract language says that we will, as a district, attempt to keep class sizes in kindergarten and first grade at 22 to 1, second through fifth at 23 to 1, and 6th through 12th at 24 to 1. So as you can see in Clear Creek, we have a class size of 20 and 23 respectively in kindergarten and first grade. I have, you can see in 5 points, put some yellow highlights in. As you can see in second grade, a class size of 22, third 24, fourth 24, and fifth 25. So those areas in which I've highlighted are areas that are in excess of our goal of having children at a 23 to 1 ratio in 5 points, as well as in Dennis. In Dennis, you can see we've got 23, 26, 25, and 26 in grades 2 through 5 respectively. One thing that I do want to point out, while 5 points has a significantly larger student body, our class sizes at Dennis Elementary are higher than that at 5 points, which I think comes as a surprise to many folks. Springboro Intermediate, we are teamed, and because we have 4 teams, we have 4 core subjects per team. You can see where I put number of staff, 4 teams, 5 subjects. We have 4 teams with 4 core teachers on the team. Each core teacher teaches 5 periods. So that's where the math is coming. So we take the 469 divided by the 4 teams, that's how many children are roughly on a team, divided by the 5 periods in which they teach, and we come out with a class size of 23. The same general idea holds true at Springboro Junior High, where we have class sizes of 23 and 24 respectively in 7th and 8th. And I'm going to stop there because those are similar calculations, those K through 8, and answer any questions that you might have regarding class size. I do want to point out that in the elementary, in grades 4 and 5, we have students who leave these classes to go to resource classes, intervention classes, and then we also have gifted classes. So for instance, I have a gifted class in 4th grade at 5 points that is taught by a GIS. It is not taught by a gen ed teacher. So when those 27 kids leave these courses, it lowers the class size. So for instance, that class size of 24 as an average at 5 points in 4th grade, 27 of those kids are being peeled right off the top to go to an ELA block that's taught by a GIS, overall lowering those class sizes. We also have a handful of youngsters that Sarah services in our special education department who leave for a resource reading class. So these overall class sizes in your right column are going to be a little bit higher than if you walked in a class and said, well, if our average is 24, for instance, where are these kids? They're probably out in either a gifted section that's a pullout, or they may be in a resource section that's a pullout. I do want to point out that our reading intervention, while the students go to a reading intervention teacher, they still sit in the reading block. So they're getting their 90 minutes of reading, and at a different time in the day, they go for their 45 minutes of reading to the reading intervention. So they're being double blocked for reading. So just to kind of give you that picture, because this isn't an exact picture if you jumped from class to class to class, because kids are going in different directions.
How do these compare to previous school years? You have a sense of line, increasing, decreasing?
We're typically a little bit over that contract language at the top by a couple kids here and there. So in K-8, going to teams at the 7th and 8th grade significantly lowers class sizes than if we were not teamed. If we were not teamed, we would not need the 8 teams of 4 teachers, but rather we would reduce the number of teachers and go with a larger class size. So you'll see in that 6 through 8 class sizes that are a little bit lower than in the past. So that kind of answers your question. It's a very specific type of programming and scheduling when you team students. That's why those sit a little bit lower than what we might expect of students at that age.
So can you help
and 8th or 7th and 8th. I had heard some people talking about like ELA being some smaller classes this year, like in their teens.
In 7th and 8th? Well, we have Mrs. Dole in the room, and she'll tell you that she has a couple sections that are at 30. So with her having a couple sections at 30 and our average being at that 23, 24, it's going to offset somewhere else where we may have some in the teens.
So how is that? Like if you had 30, why would we have somebody at 7? Like I wouldn't want to be the 30 teacher, I'd want to be the 15 teacher.
Yeah.
Like, so how does that work?
Depends on the child's schedule and what other specials they're taking as well. So like kids who are taking band one period, well, band is only one particular period, so you have to schedule the rest of the classes kind of around that. And that is where you see the disparity in the higher levels is that, yeah, across the hall, someone could be teaching 19 while I'm teaching 30, but it just kind of is based on the schedules. I know our counselors work really hard to try to even out our classes as much as possible. It's just sometimes an impossible feat.
Gotcha. So is that usually like the maximum would be like 30?
Oh, I make sure that we're not going over 30. We don't have any over 30 up through grade 8. We do have, Mrs. Dull has 2 courses that are at 30. Mr. Adams, I'm going to do this from memory because I can't find my sheet. Mr. Adams has 2 courses that are at 30, and Mrs. Krim has 2 courses that are at 30. Just to give you some idea, Mrs. Krim teaches 3 sections of algebra, 2 sections of honors geometry. Our geometry numbers were at 60. Our algebra numbers were at 67. She teaches 5 periods, so we had to decide, okay, she's going to teach 5 periods, and we've got 67, and we have a 60. One of the subjects is going to be 2, and one of the subjects is going to be 3. So that's where her class sizes are a little bit off, because she's got the algebra at 67 divided by 3. She's got her geometry. This is crazy that these are in my mind, but they are. She has her geometry at 59 divided by 2. So that's why she's sitting on the 30. So we have some instances like that, because with teaming, we want to make sure if we can to keep the kids all on one team as opposed to cross-teaming them back and forth between different teams.
That makes sense. And that makes sense why in the contract it says you will attempt to, so you know that some might have higher and some are going to have lower. Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
We do not have any core classes through grade 8 that are over 30.
Okay.
But we do have
that's
those 5
helpful.
sections at the junior high that are at 30.
Okay.
And we
it's
have
the
in
same-
the past, I've taught larger classes
Mhm.
at 30, so.
We're low right now.
So that's good.
So we are working at keeping it 30 at the maximum. Is that the same at the high school as 30 are?
No.
No.
I'm gonna hit that one
Okay.
completely separately. So any other questions on K-8? Because the high school is a completely different animal.
And I know as you get older, I get it, that you can handle more, so, but more.
Any other questions on K-8? Okay, on the high school, you'll see that I've done that a little bit differently. At the high school, I have your 9th through 12th grade. So I wanted to make sure that you kept those numbers, even though those are not in use for the calculation on class size. What I've done at the high school is I have pulled off all elective coursework. So when you look at ELA, math, social studies, and science, for instance, social studies, you're not going to see the psychology numbers. You're not going to see the sociology numbers. ELA, you're not going to see the creative writing. I've pulled all electives off. Our electives are high. I'm not going to rattle off to you which teachers have them because there are too many, very honestly. The high school is our tightest scheduled building in the district as far as class sizes go. We don't have wiggle room at the high school. In the past, Jamie, you'd asked, what does it look like in the past? In the past, we have had wiggle room at the high school. We no longer have that. We've got in excess of 30 in health, PE, psychology, sociology, personal finance, AP, economics, macro and micro, several art courses, ROTC, and several music courses. We would expect that out of music because let's face it, a larger choir sounds better than a smaller choir, but there are significantly more classes at the high school that are high than in our K-8. And that's why I separated them out. And I wanted to show you where we're placing our energies as far as keeping class sizes at a manageable point for our teachers who are teaching in the core. You will see, for instance, your AP Calculus BC, your AP Calculus AB. So those are in here in the math. We don't consider those elective, we consider those core classes. They're just at a higher level because the students started their high school math courses a little bit earlier. So that's a little bit different. This is the high school report, so you can see it's a lengthy report. I go through this weekly for about the first half of the first quarter because a lot of students are moving from section to section. Oh my gosh, I signed up for honors and it's killing me. I need to come back and go into CP. So I watch these very closely. I print one once a week, and I go through and I highlight every class over that looks like it's a 30 or more, and we watch those super close because we don't want a situation where our teachers can't teach kids because there's too many in a room. I will tell you that you may have a kid taking AP Physics C, and he might be in a class or she might be in a class of 14 kids. So that's definitely going to offset a CP science class in 9th grade, and you may see a class of 30 there. You're not going to see a class over 30 there, but. So this isn't just a different picture, and I could spend all evening going through every single one of these with you at the high school. I won't do that because you would bore the living daylights out of you. I don't want to belabor the meeting with all of our class sizes at the high school, but I will say that Jim Collins, who is our high school guidance chair, and Kyle Martin do an outstanding job with scheduling and trying to even out our courses. We also have 25% of our kids that participate in one or more College Credit Plus classes, which helps us out because they're out of the building. We are not staffed to be able to handle that 25% of our population. So if that 25% of the population said, we're not doing CCP anymore, and they all came back, we would be really hard pressed to be able to put them in classrooms and keep our numbers under 40 in some places.
So has that number come down? That was going to be one of my questions. You said that we've got a little less flexibility at the high school where it's increased relative. Is it so that because the CCP number has decreased?
Yeah, as our classes have increased, our CCP numbers increased with them.
Okay.
So if you had, like, for instance, if you had several years ago 400 kids in a class, and now that we have 500, during that same time we went from the PSEO system to the CCP system, and in so doing, we have a larger net capturing kids going out.
So proportionately, it's the same. You're saying it's similar.
Yes.
The percentage of kids, but this is just more a function of the class sizes have increased.
Right.
And that's what.
So we've been lucky that as the class sizes have increased, so have our CCP numbers. So the ratio is
I just didn't know
similar.
if it was class sizes had stayed stable and the CCP number was maybe coming down, which is putting more kids back in the building. No, okay.
But I thought that when I looked at our 5-year forecast, at one point it was like $500,000 that we put into CCP because we were like, whoa.
There's no
I
reason
thought it
for
was
that.
lower.
Yeah, that's why it's been interesting, because as our student enrollment for CCP has gone up, they're choosing the core schools versus the ceiling schools, which has actually made our costs come down, even though the enrollment's up.
Oh, so they're like choosing Sinclair.
Sinclair's done an absolutely wonderful
Oh,
job
okay.
getting our kids into classes. We have students who apply to do CCP in Miami and find out in August that they don't have room in any classes. Sinclair's accommodating them, so we've seen a shift from the Wright State, Cedarville, Miami into Sinclair because Sinclair is a little bit more accommodating to our students.
Wow. Majorly financially.
And we can do, I mean, if you'd like, I can do a CCP presentation. I can keep it short as you need me to keep it, just to kind of get you up to speed with what are our CCP kids doing. Clearly at a later date.
Yeah, I would be very interested in that. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
So just so I'm reading this correctly, so these numbers are across all grades, right? ELA, math?
Right,
social
yes.
studies, got it, okay.
And
right.
I tried to shade it just so it kind
Yeah,
of
I just wanna make
offset
sure
it
I
a
was
little
reading
bit.
it. Okay, good. So,
Not a lot of fluctuation from grade level to grade level.
right.
When we schedule here, we try to keep our classes that are in inclusion settings, so our students with special needs that are in an inclusion setting with 2 teachers, co-teachers, at a lower number because of the needs of the students than, for instance, an AP or an honors class. So you may see AP and honors courses with a few more kids in them than you would an inclusion class.
So there's a little bit of disparity there too.
So I'm not sure if this is a question for you or someone else, but it looks like from first to fifth, we're almost on the nose, 450 students every class. And then 6 through 12, 475 to 500. Are we expecting a 10% drop as we, or does something happen in middle to high school where we get an,
Well,
influx of students?
We, having run the junior high for several years, we do get an influx there out of our privates and Catholic schools. So a lot of kids will do like an incarnation, K-5, and then they jump in and see us either in 6th, 7th, or 8th,
Okay.
so that they make their friends before they get to the high school level. So we do see a lot of that.
Got it, okay. So I guess the other somewhat related observation is, if I look at 5 points in Dennis, and then again, I kind of stack the classes on top of each other, 450, pretty much straight up and down, and then I do the same with the staff, that seems to, I think if you kind of went through and probably added one teacher, maybe 3rd, 4th, and 5th, you basically snap back into a 23 to 1. But maybe that's something we need to continue to think about, is the bundling of 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and 5th into individual buildings. Maybe we get some economies of scale there from a staffing perspective. I don't know.
We did add a 2nd grade teacher to Dennis this year. So we had 8 teachers across the board in all grade levels, and those numbers went up in the spring. So you approved the hiring of another teacher in 2nd grade, which we were really pleased, because the second and third in those buildings, not that our all teachers work very, very hard, but 2nd and 3rd have that 3rd grade reading guarantee hanging over their head. They have the same children all day long, so they're prepping all subjects.
Yeah.
Whereas in 4-5, we're prepping social studies and ELA, and we're prepping science and math. Our 2nd and 3rd grade teachers are prepping all subjects, so that they just have a lot on their plate when it comes to workload and transitioning and teaching something different all day long. So they're not repeating their lessons at all. And a lot of pressure through the 3rd grade guarantee, 3rd grade testing. Not to take away from our 4th and 5th grade part. Okay, any other questions?
Quick question, do you know
Yes.
approximately how many students, juniors and seniors, are at the CTC?
I bet Lisa does.
I don't have it at the top of my, we get it reported
I'm just
monthly, but I
curious,
don't
like,
remember what our number is.
Okay, if I had to guess, this is, you guys know I work in numbers, and it's really hard for me to try and guess, but I would say roughly 80. They have changed, and we did have a meeting with their new superintendent, Mr. King. They've changed the way they do enrollment, so we do have a lot of kids who did not get in because of their lottery. We have a lot more than 80 we have a lot more than what are attending interested. So we would like to see them accommodate more of our kids and perhaps change the way they do the lottery and maybe look more at a human being as opposed to just numbers. Because we do have kids that didn't get in that really could have been served well with the person.
Is that something that I'm assuming they allot us a certain number of slots versus other districts? Is that kind of how?
I think they do, as far as I know, I think they do a ratio from district to district.
Yeah, so since you have me there to represent you, so let's talk about that, because that's not been something that's we've discussed as a board at the Career Center, so I'm happy to talk to you about that later.
So I'm wondering if
Yeah.
we can insert ourselves and
Yeah.
kind of do that sorting for them and say, here's, you give us 80 slots, hey, here's the data we recommend.
I would love to do that.
I don't know if
Yeah.
that's feasible.
There are kids who really, really, really could have
Yeah.
benefited
Yeah.
that are
I
not.
mean, you're going to have insights. that I'm
Absolutely.
guessing that
Good, interested. I brought up a young man who has a painting booth in his garage. His dad is teaching him how to paint. He has done a 57 Chevy. I think now he's working on a 50-something pickup truck, if I'm not mistaken. He'll probably be fine because his dad's teaching him. But what a shame that we had a kid that had that kind of interest, that he's spending his spare hours on auto body work, and he can't learn any of that during the school hours. So that's a good example. Another example is we have an honors gifted student who's interested in veterinary school post-graduation from college. She could not get in the vet section. I mean, this is an honors AP kid. And, you know, I told Joel, you really missed a boat on this young lady, you really missed a boat on this young man. We're missing out on kids that could help the Career Center.
Yeah, I think there's definite conversations for we're partners, and I think that it makes sense since you all know those students much better than an application. So I think there's a great conversations for the future. Yeah, it's a great idea.
It's okay, I'm gonna stop on the Career Center stuff, because I keep going on that one all night too.
Thank you.
Okay, next.
Committee reports.
Wait, these guys are next, I think.
They're just gonna, Matt and Scott are going to just briefly talk about capacity and staffing, obviously staffing.
Yeah, we've looked at staffing on this, and I think Andrew's done a nice job. The one other piece that I'll chime in is we do have a piece of software that I know Tara, Scott, and I looked at. It's called Decision Insight, and it kind of leads to what you're talking about in terms of like, what is this going to look like in the future? Because we can see where they are, and do more kids come back or not. I think there needs to be more work done with you as a board around those numbers, because they give us two tracks. One is a conservative and one is a moderate. And on one end, it says, look out, a bunch of kids are coming. And on the other end, it says, where did everyone go? And we're left to say, we're not data analysts. What does this mean? And we would love to engage with you guys in that. Scott, Tara, and I also attended a webinar by, was it OSBA on that?
Oh, yes,
OSBO on that. And it was intriguing to me. And I think that there's some things that we learned about the birth rate trend that's coming, about how it appears to be hitting a dip according to the data that was shared in this webinar. So we're trying to look ahead the best we can and provide information for you guys to make a decision on what the future of the district looks like in terms of staffing. And I think more work needs to be done with us in a work session in the future. I know Mrs. Hester's going to work to set that up at some point to make sure that these numbers are manageable and that our teachers are in a space where they can have the positive effect on kids that, you know, we see in the presentations and we hear from our speakers about the work that they do in the classroom. So to ensure that, we're just not sure at this point. I hesitate to say that to you guys because, you know, we of course want to be the experts, but the data is interesting.
I thought with decision impact that they, like, I will tell you, I was shocked. I had not driven, like I was going from Five Points to the high school, and I had not seen how grown up that development was quickly. I mean, it not been that long since I had driven past that, and how quickly it was already up and going. So I thought with decision impact, they like worked with our city and township and the housing like all of they were digging into that. So it's not just with birth rates, but it's also with feet on the ground people to get the most accurate. So it wasn't just like a national trend, but it was the locals. So
I can speak on that really quickly. It was part of what my committee update. We did receive a report from them recently that discussed that there's 8 new developments that are either in the planning process or already approved over the next 10 years. And over that 10-year period, we could get between 589 and 600 students from 1,172 units, whether it be single family or multifamily. That piece of information is very helpful. It's a very detailed report. But when they give us the actual numbers of kids leaving versus kids coming, so we had bubbles, if you remember several years ago where there was really large class sizes, it could appear maybe from the data that there were larger bubbles going through the district than bubbles coming in, if that makes sense. And I think that's why it's really hard to really go through the data, because there's like a 600, in some cases, 300 to 600 kids swing per year. And it's like, that's huge. And so how do you dial into the data and choose one? Because we only have 4 years of history to look at. And almost 3 of those years were COVID, which affects it a lot. So I think it's also hard to make a decision or to bring things to you guys to review that the data, like you said, it's interesting because it's huge fluctuations and there's a lot of things that were in that data due to COVID that we can't really aren't sure we can trust. And so that's where the new development piece I don't think think that is hard to look at. It's the kids going through and mobility and the birth rates and all of those things that really throw off all of that. For 10 years, they're trying to forecast.
Obviously, but those ranges that they've provided us do account for the development. It
Yes.
sounds like
Yes.
it's being factored in. Do we have I don't know if there's like a contact or, somebody we work with there that can help us navigate? It's a wide range, and I'm not really sure how useful it is to us to have a
I think the
range that
challenge.
varies that much. I
mean,
just didn't know if
and
there was somebody
don't
from
worry.
that organization that can help us.
They're a national organization, and I think that's where it's a little bit difficult too, because they're out of California, I believe. And so, although we do have a rep that does
Okay.
work, it's like all analytics. I think we're just numbers on paper. So, you know what I mean? So,
But I wonder
there's
if-
a lot more work that we want to.
I mean, as Lisa mentioned, I mean, if maybe there's somebody from the township, but maybe there's somebody from the city that would just kind of dig through it with us, because I agree, I think they're the best position to, I mean, we're not that big of a community. That's, I guess the good news is anybody here can do the eye test. I mean, we're not getting smaller. I mean, we're just not, and if it's 8 developments, we're not knocking houses down anywhere. So it's, the capacity just continues to grow, and it feels like anything that, I would heavily discount in my mind any projection that had us going downhill in the next 10 years in terms of, I can't see that again, just because I live here, and I just.
And we're seeing the numbers,
Yeah,
junior high on
yeah.
up, we're seeing, we're not seeing, I know what you're talking about, those bubble years, because we were having a significant bubble in a couple. But what we're seeing here is your pretty even numbers, and then 6 through 12, it jumps because we get a lot of our private schools, a chunk but the trajectory keeps going up. We're not seeing a dip. And my concern is when the trajectory is going up and then we have 8 to 10 developments with 600 students, even if it's just
So that's-
600.
That's 40 per class we would be adding. I mean, that's 2 classrooms.
I mean, that's also over a 10-year period.
Yeah.
They're projecting that. But yeah, that's why we said there's a lot of work that needs to be done in the data. I agree, and that's part of what it's a lot.
It's one of the things they hit on in the WASBO as well, is that, it's not just birth rate like we talked about, but as an example with the Intel plant going in over in Columbus, they show statistics that there's 7,000 jobs at that facility. And yet Delaware and Pinkerton, all of them are going down in what is projected as enrollment over the next 8 to 9 years. Most of them are going down in projected enrollment, because what they're talking about is that as millennials are coming, right, they're buying these homes, but they're not having kids. And so that's one of the factors that they build into their analysis, So it's like an actuarial, they're just kind of looking at numbers and trying to figure out where they are going to be. From a current capacity perspective that SHP did for us versus an enrollment projection, right now, overall, from K through 8 especially, our numbers are not hitting the target of capacity and enrollment. Not to say that it may not here soon. At the high school, as Andrea talked about, is that if we didn't have the CCP kids going out, we may have some issues that we would have to deal with. But we're continuing to monitor these things. We're continuing to work with the principals on some spaces that we think might be able to free up, and be able to provide some more curricular space. And so those are the kind of things we need to do right now, to help educate our students.
And I mean, just one more thing. I mean, I think we've got to continue to keep in mind is anything we do today or start today won't impact our kids for 3 years. I mean, just being completely realistic, funding, shovels in the ground, staffing up. I mean, so we need to think about, the class of 2026,
6 or 7
is, the ones coming in that if we needed a true new facility or to do something radical with our current ones. I mean, that's how far out we got to think, is, we could all agree right now to build something, and it's not going to impact anybody next year, probably the year after that. So
It's 18 to 24 months right now in construction at least.
That's exactly what my point was going to be, is I appreciate that we're looking at utilizing every nook and cranny. I used to teach in a boiler room, so I get that completely. And I don't want our teachers teaching in a boiler room at all. But I think as much as it's great that we maximize where we're at, we are a sought after community because we are a strong academic unit. And so we're not bringing in families. We're not bringing in people that don't have families. They come here to raise their families. And I think we look at the houses, and most of them are housing units that are there to raise a family. And I just think we have to recognize that, but also know that it's a few years off before we make a decision to do it, we pass the levy to do it, and then we get it built. So we have to look at our history at Springboro and make sure that we're planning for success. So we can accommodate that. So thank you for this. This was super helpful. Can we see the report from the decision?
Well, I think that's what we've discussed, that when they're ready to sort of bring it to us, that we'll have a retreat or something where we can
At the
do
retreat,
sort of the
okay.
full, like, go through it and talk all of it in conjunction with financing and all of that. So I think that it's just a matter of when they're ready, and yeah, we'll devote the appropriate amount of time to go through that.
All right, now committee reports, right?
I have two committee reports tonight. First was Budget and Finance. We met on September 23rd, and we have 4 new members, 2 community members, and 2 staff, so that was nice to see some new faces. We started out by going over the end of the year finances as how we closed at year end versus the May forecast, which kind of started the conversation. We hit on taxes, the triennial update that we went through in 2021, as well as we'll be going through another triennial in 2024, and we discussed kind of what the estimates, early estimates are for that reappraisal, sorry. We did hit on the new construction conversation with proposed new developments, like I mentioned a few minutes ago. We also hit on the public utilities piece with Rockies Express. Bless you. And just to bring them up to speed on where we were at for that analysis, the $584,000 reduction that we have already started to receive, and then what will happen if that appeal is denied or granted. We discussed state funding and how the local share and the state share is determined. And we also just hit on our current cash flows. And our next meeting for Budget and Finance will be November 11th. So I'll prepare minutes for that as well. So. Then we also had a FIT meeting on February 27th. McGowan and Brevender presented at that meeting. Actually, it was September 19th, sorry. Our next meeting is going to be February 27th. I'm going to fast forward to next year. We actually discussed during that meeting our claims costs versus our premiums.
Bless you.
Maybe I should leave.
We actually talked about our trends, and we're actually moving in the right direction for our FIT meeting. We kind of looked at the year-over-year increases. We started out back in 2018-19 with 128.9% loss ratio, and with some of the different things that we've put into place, we're down as of right now through July to 99.5, which is wonderful. Obviously, those insurance options and second options, as well as the co-insurance that we did a few years ago, is helping bring those costs down. We're moving in the right direction. We still have some work to do. The goal is 95% loss ratio, so that way the other 5% can go to the cost to run a plan. We also kind of talked about our renewal for January. It's going to be 70%, and how that loss ratio determines our premium increase. We also went over open enrollment dates, and we did have a discussion about the EMS, which is you and I talked about in our last update. We kind of put that on hold just a little bit. We're going to circle back in January to February timeframe and restart those discussions once some of the new staff that we have is brought up to speed on that whole process in order to gain support. And as I said earlier, our next meeting is February 27th. Those are the 2 committee reports that I have.
Any other business? Well, you're still up then.
Yep, okay, I have several items here for you. I'll go through the first 3 items because they'll have to be voted on separately. The first first one is August 2022 financial report. The detailed financials for all funds are on board docs for your review. Revenue for the month of August came in at just over 8.7 million. 6.9 million of that was tax advances, which we did receive a settlement in September this month. 1.5 million from August was due to state funding, and about 375 was miscellaneous revenue, of course, things such as school fees and things such as fees. Our expenses came in at just over 4.7 million for August. And looking at the salaries and benefits, we're very much on target with where we would anticipate to be so far through the year. Purchase services are running slightly under. I do believe that that's going to be a timing issue just based off of delays of services being able to be performed and then those bills coming in to be paid. I'm watching through September. I actually looked at it this morning and we're still running under budget, but I don't want to get too excited about that yet. I do believe it's just going to be a timing issue. Supplies and capital, they're always front heavy every year because most projects for capital are trying to be completed during the summer. And then as well as supplies, we order a lot of supplies for the next school year in the summer, and then the bills start rolling in July and August. So we'll always have higher expenditures in those months, and then we'll taper off back in within estimates. So we're running right around where I would expect to be, even though it looks like they're high. At the close of August, we had just under 19.7 million in our general fund. And not to get too excited about that amount because that's just because we received a lot of tax advances. And then settlement came in this month, which means for the rest of the year, we'll only be receiving state funding and all that good stuff until February, when the second half of advances start. So then we'll, obviously we'll be spending out our cash. So it's about $165,000 a day to educate today, and we have about 119 days on cash on hand right now through August, and I'm expecting that to be about 83 days of cash on hand at June 30th. So you'll see that obviously we'll be going back down. So those are the financials. The next item is the approval of the permanent appropriations, and we have to have this approved by the board and submitted to the county auditor by October 1st each year. We've been running off the, in June, you guys approved the temporary appropriations, and that allows us to go ahead and expend money until the permanent appropriations are approved. So that's what those are. I'll do a revision in January, February timeframe, as well as the final in June. And then the last item for this piece of the approval is approval of a donation for $2,430 from the Touchdown Club for painting the steps leading from Edgefield to the field.
Is there a motion to accept 4.1 through 4.3?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Roll call.
Bab?
Yes.
Stuckey?
Abstain.
Palage?
Yes.
Goods?
Yes.
Schleifer? Yes. Okay. I will go through the other items here. So item 4.5 will be appointment of the delegate and alternate delegate for the LSU Capital Conference. You guys can discuss that once we do a motion and second, so I'll go ahead and just go on past that for the rest of the items. 4.6 is approval of a donation of $1,192.75 from the Panther Elementary PTO South for the purchase of a buddy bench at Dennis Elementary. Item 4.7, approval of a donation of a classroom rug valued at $114 from Greg, Tracy, Lindsay, and Zach Gillen to be placed in Jill Hopkins' first grade classroom. Item 4.8, approval of a donation of $200 towards the high school choir department, and a list of donors are attached. Item 4.9, approval of a donation of miscellaneous classroom supplies valued at $93.08 from 937 Nutrition to be used at 5 Points Elementary. And the last item is item 4.10, approval of a donation of $2,160 from the Panther North PTO for art and music activities at 5 Points Elementary.
Okay, is there a motion to approve 4.5 through 10?
Second.
Discussion.
We have to discuss who wants to do the delegate. I have some information on that if you want to know what it is.
I don't mind doing it. We said we were talking about this. I swear we had this conversation, but
You may have, I mean, I don't mind doing it. I'm just
Okay.
looking at
I'll be the alternate.
the
That's
time.
fine.
Yeah, it's the 14th at 2:30. It should work.
So Palage for the delegate and Goods for the alternate.
Yes.
Roll call.
Bab?
Yes.
Stuckey?
Yes.
Palage?
Yes.
Goods?
Yes.
Playhouse?
All right. Personnel report.
Mr. Board President, members of the board, before you with the personnel report. Much of this is kind of standard operating of extended days, supplementals and stuff like that. There are a couple that I do want to call out. Amy Pritchard is retiring after 34 years. She's a 5th grade teacher at Dennis. Very proud of her. And then we also have a reading intervention teacher at Clear Creek, Melissa Myers, who I think has come back several times. She's a retiree hire, and she is going to retire at this time. We hope to kind of potentially coax her back. There's some evaluation things that when you're here, you have to go through, and if you retire, you don't. And I think that's the path that she's going through right now. And then a couple others that I just want to make sure that I call attention to. We had 4 of our building aides decide to resign. It's kind of unfortunate. I have to applaud the district for putting these in place. So the purpose of these aides, as you probably will remember, was to provide release time for our teachers so they can work on professional learning community type work where they are reviewing data from student work. They're talking about best practices. They're making adjustments to their teaching strategies based on the response to the students. And unfortunately, we had 4 of our building aides resign as a result of what I would call inaccuracies on social media that parents kind of were a little bit above and beyond and making statements about some of our staff members that made them extremely uncomfortable. We do conduct exit interviews with all of our staff that leave, and I was able to get feedback from multiple members who just became uncomfortable as community members with kids in schools, working to serve the school in a manner that they ultimately felt attacked by the community. So I just wanted to bring that to you as an unfortunate situation that seems to happen on a phenomenon that I'm not necessarily aware of, the prattle pages that are part of Springboro. So just want to call that out and make you aware of that. So teachers are now covering those lunches because for safety of students, we have to have someone out there, and that was who the aides were hired to replace. So.
That's personnel report.
Yep. Is there a motion to accept 5.2 and 3?
No, it's just 5.1.
Just 5.1.
5.1.
What?
We'll do 5.1 and then we'll do 5.2 and 3 together. So this is 5.1.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept 5.1?
So moved.
Second.
So are we looking to rehire those?
We will attempt to. I mean, that's not a highly sought after.
Circumstances that you- Yeah.
I don't think it will be one that people will want to do. It's a 2-hour position, and these ladies were so good to try to help the school. It wasn't about the money. It was about helping the elementaries.
One mom I spoke to talked about how she had lived in another district. She moved to Springboro for the school, so she guys kind of alluded to, and really was looking forward to this position to get to know more people and see what's going on in the school, and had really enjoyed her first weeks there. And was just disappointed by the result of this.
Yeah, roll call.
Bab?
Yes.
Stuckey?
Yes.
Palage?
Yes.
Goods?
Yes.
Playhouse?
Yes.
Item 5.2 and 5.3 are athletic related. These are approval of supplementals primarily for winter sports and then as well as some game operation staff.
Is there a motion to accept 5.2 and 5.3?
Second.
We can talk about that. Is there anything you want to share on 5.3?
I believe this is typical game operation. I don't know if there's any kind of discussion or questions around this, but this is payment for game operations.
It's standard.
Mm-hmm.
There were no changes.
There was a
Let's get a
motion.
motion.
Okay, you did it. I'm sorry.
Sarah motion, this is second.
Okay, sorry.
Roll call.
Bab?
Yes.
Stuckey?
Abstain.
Palage?
Yes.
Goods?
Yes.
Playhouse?
Yes.
5.
5.5, our 5th graders going back to Camp Kern overnight. So we pulled this out because I think they've got a special guest volunteer that maybe, might want to abstain from this one as well. But we were looking to seek approval for our volunteers on this final night.
Is there a motion to accept those 4 people that want to volunteer for Camp Kern.
Second.
Yeah. I love that you guys are here. Yeah, I had 2 of those years, and I'm thinking, well, my wife will get hers, but my daughter, you know, maybe, and of course, those are the 2 years that we don't go. So my wife escaped. I had to do that, you know.
I'm right there with your wife, Jamie.
I'm sorry,
Yeah, I
Jamie.
escaped. My husband's gonna get both boys.
Wake up, go to work the next day after a wonderful night's sleep. Yeah.
Roll call.
Beth?
Yes.
Stuckey?
Yes.
Palage?
Yes.
Goods?
Abstain.
Shortall?
Assistant Superintendent of Instruction.
Have 2 items. The first one is seeking approval of our marching band going to Indianapolis for 2 different contests. And my second item is a follow-up to my discussion on Horton Gillingham for 2 weeks of training, 60 hours, 30 for each week. And we will be seeking districts in the area in Southwest Ohio to come in and offset the cost of our own staff for those.
Is there a motion for 6162?
So moved.
Second.
Can I make one quick comment about the band? I'm glad to see that they're doing this trip, and I know there was some social media comments about the band and some lack of respect in the stands. And I just have to say, I appreciate that the community really responded to that. I have seen an increase in people pausing and taking note when the band is out there performing and recognizing that they're working hard at it. So I love seeing that they're taking these trips and they work so hard at what they're doing. So I think it's great that they're doing this, and I appreciate that the community is also recognizing that on Friday night, the band is also out there and they need to be recognized also when they're out there performing, so.
They certainly do put a lot of hours in.
Yeah, just along those lines, I can't remember which game it was. And I know we've talked about this in the past, but it was encouraging too to see, might have been after the older game,
Centerville.
where the football team.
The football team.
Stays.
Yeah.
And what, I know
Yeah,
that's
right.
something that Coach
Yeah.
Williams and I just want to perform. I think it was after maybe an older. Yeah, I can't remember. So I just, in the same spirit, and to see that support between
Yep.
our students, I
Yep,
think is encouraging as
absolutely.
well.
Roll call.
Beth?
Yes.
Stuckey?
Yes.
Palage?
Yes.
Goods?
Yes.
Shortall?
Thank you for your support.
Mr. Board President, members of the board, one item this evening on 7.1 is the approval to declare impractical transportation for students at various locations or other schools. This is in requirement as of 3327.01 and 3327.02 of the revised code. And so it's just one of those things that our drivers have not increased in operational efficiencies and things of that nature. So that's why we're requesting your approval this evening.
You didn't read all the schools.
You want me to read them? There's not too many of them, yeah. And just to add to that, I mean, parents do have the abilities to get paid in lieu of for transportation of their students, and it's a minimum of $538.55 per student is what we pay. But when you don't have drivers and you don't have other means, then that's the way you have to go.
Did that increase this year with the per diem? Did our per diem increase with the increase of gas? I couldn't remember what we were paying.
No, last year it was the same. It was $538.55, yes. They did not increase it this year, and that's a good thing. But it did go up 2 years ago. It actually doubled 2 years ago from $250 to $538.
Okay.
So-
I couldn't remember what we were paying before. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Sure.
Is there a motion to accept 7.1?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Beth?
Yes.
Stuckey?
Yes.
Palage?
Yes.
Goods?
Yes.
Shortall?
Yes.
Thank you.
8.1, special education.
Mr. President, members of the board, I have 3 contracts on the agenda tonight. 2 are private transportation for students who are enrolled in outside programs. And then the third, I think you guys talked a little bit about already, is we're requesting to add an additional day of behavior coaching support. That is to support the whole district. Our needs are growing in the area of behavior. I don't know that that'll be a long-term addition, but that is something that absolutely we can use some ESSER funds for. And I had some set aside to kind of respond to behavioral needs, and we are absolutely seeing that in our K-1. And it's not just Springboro. We had a director's meeting for all of Warren County last week, and that is the consensus across school districts in the county, in the state. Whether it's coming out of COVID, that's our assumption, right? This K-1 class, their preschool years were spent at home, and we're seeing the results of not having structured programs. And so it's difficult. It's not unique to special education. And so I think that's important for you guys to understand as well. Our behavior coach, while that goes through my department, they respond to RTI as well. So they're responding to all behavior needs across the district, and our current 2 days a week is not cutting it. So I'm hoping if we can add this third day in through the remainder of the school year, and then we'll reassess at the end of the school year, see where we stand, and see if we can go back to 2 days for next year. We did have to go through Hamilton County for this one day, just staffing. Warren County really doesn't have anybody else available right now, so.
So what are we doing if we have an extreme behavior on the other 2 days then?
So our behavior coaches, that's a good question. Our behavior coaches rarely work directly with students. They will come in and work directly with a student in order to model strategies, to collect specific data. But typically our behavior coaches are truly coaching the staff to work with students. So they have very set schedules. They bounce around all 6 buildings. They help the staff facilitate functional behavior assessments and develop behavior intervention plans. And then they meet weekly or bi-weekly with the team that's serving that student to talk through, okay, what's been working this week, what's not been working, helping them adjust. Well, maybe if this isn't working, try this strategy. That's where they may come in for like an hour and model the implementation of that strategy, and then they step out. So they truly are functioning in a coaching role. And then our RBTs at 5 Points and Dennis, that kind of baby stepping into what that could look like. They do supervision of them, and our RBTs are in a little better position to then also be able to support their whole staff. So I really was hoping to get through this year with 2 days a week, but we're struggling. So that's what that is.
All right, is there a motion to accept 8-1?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Bad. Stuckey?
Yes.
Palage?
Yes.
Goods?
Yes.
Playhouse? Yes.
All right, thank you. Any announcements? Okay, board comments. Sarah?
I'm really appreciative of the data of where we are with enrollment. It's super helpful to see how our kids are how their needs are being met. And teachers too, right? Class sizes, the larger they are, it's harder, to meet needs. And knowing that and looking at history of the school district and how we can find available spaces where available. And those are probably really hard to find, I'm sure. I really enjoyed the presentation for WOW. I think that's a great experience for our junior high kids to look beyond our community and how we made an impact elsewhere. I think that's huge.
I also wanted to speak to what Mr. Yost brought in. I just think what an amazing, amazing way. I think that's one thing that we can get in trouble with in Springboro is we get so involved with ourselves and what we do here that we forget to look outside of Springboro. And that was such a great way, whether we're looking at Dayton or areas around us or all the way in Africa. So I just appreciate that he brought it and that the administration worked alongside, because there was a lot of organization that went to all the different fundraising things that he did. So that was amazing. So I'm just going to I just have to be honest. What you shared breaks my heart about some of our resignations. because as Carrie shared some information this week, I just think we should not be losing staff because of how we are, as adults, communicating on social media. So as a community, Springboro, we need to be better. Because if we're gonna teach our children how to treat each other with respect, we need to do that to our staff and our teachers. These Prattle pages, I know there's some things that are helpful when we don't know the answer to something, but our administration responds to us. And if they don't, then take it to our superintendent and say, I'm not getting a response. But these questions that go out there, and questions, if I was still a teacher and I saw people questioning about me, of course it's going to make me say, oh my gosh, what's being said behind closed doors? We've got to stop this because our teachers want what's best for our students. And these are our kids, but these teachers love our kids. Our staff love our kids. Our bus drivers love our kids. So to see the list of resignations in September, I'm just disappointed in Springboro right now. Because this is the beginning of a school year. And I know we're not supposed to comment on social media and as a board member, but I just have to be really honest right now and challenge other parents, because I'm a parent here. I've been a parent here for 22 years, and I love this community. I love who we are, but in order for us to be a strong community, we have to take care of our schools. And the people, it's not these buildings are not our schools. Our teachers and our staff are our schools. So I just hope we don't lose any other staff because we are not showing them the gratitude and the respect that they deserve, because they work hard for our students. And we need to make sure that we are giving them the respect, and if we have questions, we need to take it to our teachers, to our principals, to our administration, if there truly is a concern. Thank you.
Yeah, I think Lisa nailed it there. I think, I'm extremely disappointed as well, especially, the way the roles are described. I mean, that's going to be difficult to find people that are going to step in, but it sounds like folks left really some unfair circumstances, and I think that, exactly as you said, we have wonderful administrators, we have wonderful staff, and we have processes, very well-defined processes. If someone has a concern, an issue, that, we are here, collectively, we are here to address those, and instead, you're right, we again, as a community, like to go to social media many times, and that's our first avenue, to air out grievances, and unfortunately, it sounds like complain about individuals, and, the result of that, if we're all honest, is it's gonna hurt our kids, because now we're down 4 staff that were there to help those kids during, I think, lunch recess. And it hurts our staff as well, because that was break time for folks to kind of catch their breath. And now they're losing that time. So a great illustration of how we don't want things to go. And again, it's not for any lack of effort on administration's part or anything else. It's just that, it's very disappointing. And I completely agree. And I just hope, I beg the community to just reach out to the various channels that you have within the district itself, and we will get those answers, I guarantee, faster than Facebook, and a heck of a lot more accurate. So, yeah, great point. Switching gears a little bit, great presentation on the enrollment. Thank you to all of you for that information. I think that's, for me personally, something that, we've struggled with getting our arms around for years. And clearly, with the 8 or 9 developments, whatever it is, coming down the pipe, got some decisions to make, so looking forward to that conversation when the time's right. Again, one last word of encouragement. I feel like when we do get together, let's grab some folks from the city and the township, and if nothing else, just get their ideas. You know, they don't have to necessarily interpret it for us, but I would love to just kind of hear what they're thinking. Because they're in this with us, so let's, let's go ahead and hold them to it a little bit and have them, opine on what they think is going to happen. But, great presentation, so thanks.
Yeah, I won't belabor it, but echo what Mr. Good said, just to reiterate my faith in our administration that if things are, we all know we're not perfect, right? And things are certainly not perfect, and there's absolutely areas that will arise where we can and should do better, and I just would encourage, if there are those issues to, that we can extend some grace to people and handle those through the appropriate channels, because I, again, have the utmost confidence that if things do not get resolved and they continue to move up to the folks sitting in this room, that they will be addressed appropriately, and encourage people to pursue those avenues. But just as others have mentioned, I appreciate the presentation on the Wells fundraiser, and agree that it's great for our children to get some of that perspective, that I do think it is easy in a community like ours to maybe lose some of that perspective and not appreciate how good we have it, and when our issues that we sometimes feel are large or pale in comparison to what we heard about this evening. And so I appreciate that we have those opportunities for our students to become involved, but also to gain some of that perspective. And then just also thank you to a lot of other donations this evening as well for a variety of different things that are needed within our district, and appreciate all of the people, community members that step up to help in those areas of need as well. So that was it.
Thank you to Mr. Yost for his presentation. I thought it was very informative. The student that was here obviously got a firsthand look at it with carrying the buckets of water and stuff like that. So thanks again for the enrollment presentation. On an athletic note, right now, and it hasn't been this way for a number of years, our football team is sitting at the top of the G-Walk after beating Centerville last week, and then there was another big upset. Fairmont beat Springfield, so we're first place right now. We go to Springfield, and that's going to be a tough one there, but we'll be there Friday night. And I have to echo what you guys have said about the Facebook stuff. People want to say stuff without looking into it. I was dealing with it with my football team this past weekend. If you just look at and research it, or go to the proper people and getting some answers that way, rather than putting it out there for everybody to hear. Once it's out there, it's very difficult to pull it back in, and those 4 people that have resigned, I feel the same way. It was terrible that they had to do that. It should never have happened, but that's what social media is. It's has its good points, but as far as I'm concerned, there's so many negatives with what I deal with, and so forth. So that's about it. You want to say something?
I just want to say, I want to say thank you to the board for your words about Facebook. We, as a team, have talked about what to do. We cannot go play in the Facebook world. We are very much guided by privacy rules, nor do we want to sling mud. But I need you to know that I sat in all 6 buildings, and our teacher morale, not just our classified staff morale, our teacher morale is very low because they do not have safety psychologically when they are targeted on Facebook, on prattle pages. We talk about trauma, that causes them extreme trauma, that they know that they're giving 1,000% to these kids. And when you're in these buildings, what's going on in classrooms is inspiring. It's amazing. And they're bashed and they're attacked. And just because your child, I'm a mother of 4, they didn't come home and tell me all the details. Just because they heard it one way, that doesn't mean it's fact. Or semantics with the way the word was used. And we have to be trusted to do right investigations, and we do them. Our administrative team is strong. And every minute that we waste on Facebook, that's instructional time that is wasted for our kids. And teachers have choices. They have a lot of choices in districts now, and they will take a $5,000 to $8,000 pay cut so that they can have safety and know that they are appreciated. And we're gonna lose good people because of prattle pages. And I've asked superintendents, I've reached out to many superintendents, and Springboro is unique in that we have prattle pages. And it's not something that we should be proud of. It's not.
Well, and I think we have to remember, one thing that I think makes us unique is that we have a lot of staff that lives in Springboro, and there's some great things to that. But we have to recognize a lot of our kids, like his wife taught 3 of my boys. That was an awesome thing. But we also have to remember, she's on social media. Well, when she taught here, a lot of our teachers and staff are on social media, so they're seeing these things. So we have to recognize these are real people. Yes, there are children's teachers and staff and administrators or whatever, but we love the fact that our teachers are in our community. I mean, they come to, we see them at Kroger's and Dorothy Lane and at the football game and whatever. That's part of what makes Springboro Springboro. We love it, but we need to take care of it. And that's what we haven't seen happen recently, and we've got to get back to taking care of our own and recognizing that sometimes things are not going to roll out perfectly. It's not going to. I'm going to mess up. You're going to mess up. It's going to happen sometime. But we need to assume best intention. And when we're not sure of what happens, go to the right people and say, "Can we work through this?" I just taught a parent session today, and it was, be curious. Just come and say, "Hey, help me understand. This is what my child came home with. Can you help me understand? Give me some more information around this." And I think that it will feel a lot better as a teacher, as an administrator, and you probably, me as a parent, will understand it a lot differently than when we come adversarially.
It's easier to do it that way, get on Facebook and say it rather than really look into it. Whatever you can do to pass on to our staff that we're pissed, I'm pissed, okay? And, I believe every one of us 5 will support whatever you need to get the word out there. Because this is one of the low points in a long time that has happened. So, all right, enough. Okay. Anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Roll call.
Bath?
Yes.
Stuckey?
Yes.
Palage?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Brown? Yes.
We're adjourned.